good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So today we'll talk about the topic hybrid quantum safe authentication in digital payments, which an approach that blends classical security is coming, right?
Yes.
I think it's there. No?
Go ahead.
Yeah. That blends classical security with quantum resistant techniques in digital payments. And quickly introducing myself, this is Kalpana Singh. I am cryptography expert from Wordline, and I would like to hand the floor to my colleague Isil.
Thank you very much. I am Izil Ugurlu. I work at Wordline as head of PCI compliance program. And today I am very happy to present this talk with my colleague Kalpana. Before we move to agenda, I would like to shortly introduce Wordline. Wordline is a global payment service provider company. We are covering full payment value chain from end to end and working more than 170 countries globally. Also, we are very well engaged with PCI Council. We are PCI principal participating organization and also serving at Board of Advisory. Today, we created a agenda with mainly focusing on post-quantum cryptography, but we will also handle the topic from different angles. So, Kalpana will start with the importance of the cryptography in payments. Then she will explore the threat landscape and focusing on the quantum computing risk. Then together we will see the global perspective and the different transition strategies in different countries to post-quantum cryptography. And then Kalpana again will explore the hybrid quantum safe authentication solution as a proactive measure during the transition periods, and together we will conclude with the takeaways for the companies in a short run to look at it.
So thanks, Isil. So we'll see why it matters, the cryptography. So cryptography has been used widely in every step of the digital payments. The moment we connect to the merchant, to the final clearing settlements, everywhere we use cryptography, and we'll see there are several security protocols. So to this, the first one is secure socket layer and transport layer security. We use cryptography here when data is in transit between your device to the merchant to the banks. It establishes a secure connection. Then we'll see about the next security protocol, EMV protocol, so which uses to provide the data security for the card-based transactions. It uses dynamic data authentication to make sure that the card cloning would be difficult for the malicious people. Then we have 3D secure protocol. It uses again cryptography. The protocol is a challenge response protocol to make sure that the data, the security of the data, to protecting cardholder authentication and also preventing the fraud. Then we have ISO 20022 and SWIFT protocols, which is used for the financial messaging between the institutions. Then we have mobile payments protocol. Mobile payments protocol, it considers app level security, secure elements, and to make sure the data security and the authenticating cardholders or account holders data. It provides the security when the data is in transit mode or it has been stored in the device itself. To this, we have NFC payment protocol, which uses Europay, which is card-based transactions to avoid card cloning. Then the last, we have digital wallets, which stores tokens and credentials to make sure the payment authentication in a protected environment. So we'll see, so we have seen the several security protocols and what kind of cryptographic algorithm it has been utilized in each and every security protocols. So we have classified mainly into 4. We all have heard about the symmetric. So normally in digital payments, we use AES, Advanced Encryption Standard Algorithm, to make sure the key exchanges protocol and for the signature purpose as well. For asymmetric, we are using RSA and elliptical curve cryptography. For the key exchanges, for the encryption, to data security, for authentication and integrity non-repudiation purposes as well. Then we have hashing. Hashing normally we use in digital payments in message authentication codes and digital signature to make sure the data integrity again, non-repudiations to authenticate the cardholder data. And the last one is digital signature. We normally use asymmetrical cryptography, and ECDSA has been used widely as it provides quite less computation cost in comparison with the RSA, and it is very good for the contactless payment system and mobile payments apps. So now we'll see the quantum threats, as we have seen the classical cryptographic systems and the uses of it. Now we'll see like what threats has been considered and it will going to happen with the classical cryptographic schemes. So in 1994, we can see in the table that Peter Shor, the scientist, has mentioned that if one day when quantum computer will be ready, then all asymmetrical cryptographic system, meaning RSA and elliptical curve cryptographic system, would be broken. So, and as it is based on some mathematical assumptions, so RSA or asymmetrical cryptographic system in general are based on some mathematical assumptions. Due to those assumptions, the crypto system would be broken. However, Grover has mentioned that approach on symmetrical cryptographic system that is not based on mathematical concept. So it is not broken, but it is definitely a risk on in terms of the security. So we need to make sure the size of the security bit for symmetrical cryptographic system. So as we can see that it would be a hugely tremendous effect on the crypto system, because they have been used each and every daily life for the security protocols in each and every businesses, and definitely in the payments as well. Now we'll see the quantum threats, what kind of or quantum threats here we are talking about. So this slide illustrates risk landscape due to the quantum computing, and according to the regulatory bodies and the government sectors as well, from industrials, from research side, they have classified into four major quantum threats. From the NCSC UK, from the BSI Germany, ANSI from the France, and we are following Gartner also for the research and white paper reports. So the first attack is breakdown of PKC, so asymmetrical cryptographic systems, and the weakening security for symmetrical cryptographic systems, and harvest now, decrypt later attack, meaning that the attackers could store the data now, like central bank data, and decrypt it later when quantum computer would be ready. And the last attack, we can see that we are giving more power to the hackers, because of quantum computing, the size of breaking asymmetrical cryptographic system would be tremendously increased. So these are the threats we can see, and how we will talk about the challenges and migration to the company side. We'll see here. So in terms of the development of quantum computing, we can see in the graph that the race is already started. So IBM has mentioned in 2022 433 qubits. Presently in 2025 the numbers has been increased 4,000 plus, and now by 2030 in France, the research bodies and government sectors are collaborating to have more computation in this direction. Now I'd look to hand the floor to Israel for further direction.
Thank you, Kalpana. So under all these threats and developments, what about the companies? What expect next? When we look at the global perspective to see the transition strategies to post-quantum cryptography, we see plenty of publication nationwide and internationally published and advised to the companies. So the first, I would like to start with NIST. So last year published a guidance document and advising the companies that most of the digital data and devices must be quantum safe protected by 2030. And when we look at the national agencies such as from UK, US, France, the advice is that the companies also start the transitioning strategies, national strategies also start, and by 2025, so within the 10-year horizon. And one of the also advice from the German national security agencies, BSI, starting with the risk-based approach, meaning that identify the critical infrastructure and start them to protect them with post-quantum cryptography no later than 2030. The other relevant publication come up from the European Commission, advising the European member countries that create their national strategies for transitioning to post-quantum cryptography by next year, end of next year. And finally, a couple of months ago, PCI Council published cryptographic guidance document addressing the crypto agility as the best practices. So, while all this guidance addressing the companies' agility to move to post-quantum cryptography, what will be the success factor in the short run for the companies to start with? Again, NIST advised that companies start with the inventory with comprehensive inventory for the cryptographic assets in their environment. And once the inventory is completed, starting with risk assessment to identify the critical infrastructure and address them with post-quantum risk. While doing this, of course, it's really important to address the training requirements. So companies, entities need to also train their employees in order to they identify the critical risk and also address them with the best practices post-quantum cryptography. And the last success factor and short-run activity for the entities that advisable, starting with the pilots. Once they identify the critical infrastructure, start with the pilot and to see, to implement these new cryptographic controls, their environment to in a phase-based approach. Now I hand over to Kampana again to see more about the PQC and hybrid quantum safe.
Yeah, thanks, Ashil. So we'll see the solutions now. We are talking about the threats and so on. So NIST has started a competition in 2016 on PQC to make standards of these algorithms. By 2024, NIST has finalized 3 algorithms. So one in the category of encryption and key exchanges, and 2 in the category of digital signature. So the first, we call it Kyber, which is based on a mathematical structure, is called lattice. The second is based on, again, lattice, and it is called dilithium. And the third is Sphinx Plus, and it is based on the hashing. So recently, by 2025, they have announced a new PQC algorithm to make in the category of standardizations, which is HQC. And I'm proudly to say that the Wordline has played a huge role in the development of HQC. And so now we have 4 standards. They are already in the process, and soon the company will start using those standards of PQC for their security products. And however, the issue what we can see in the security products from the company perspective, as we can see that the cost in terms of classical cryptography is quite high. It's like for the signature dilithium, we can say that is 5 to 8 times is costly in terms of the memory consumption, and for the Kyber is 4 to 6 times higher than the classical cryptographic systems. So we can see that the challenges are, the first one is basically the computation cost. The second one is the lack of confidence, as we rely on classical cryptographic systems since 2 decades, so it's quite hard for us just to switch it to the pure post-quantum cryptographic systems. And the third one definitely is standardization protocol. So NIST is from the USA and we are from the European, so everyone has their own rules and policies to consider those PQC standards. The current status, what we have seen that the development of PQC, Bank of France has done this development. We have found from the white papers. It took 300 milliseconds, so that is not that bad. However, considering and replacing the whole classical cryptographic system is a challenge. So we can start from gradually transition. That the approach is called hybridation. So hybridation is the quantum safe solution, and as the name sounds, hybrid is considering more than one algorithm. So in terms of the crypto system, we are saying that two or more than 2 crypto systems, one from the classical cryptographic side and one from the post-quantum cryptographic side to make sure the classical attacks and the quantum attacks, and we can adopt this approach in our security products. So in the diagram, we are considering this diagram where we wanted to say that the Alice is a sender and Bob is a receiver, and Alice wanted to use the hybrid approach. So she will create a message and then use a classical digital signature scheme such as ECDSA and any signature scheme from the PQC such as dilithium, and combine that using hybrid concept, so basically concatenation, and then send to the Bob. Bob will verify it, and if everything is done, then it will accept the authentication. And so what kind of benefit we can see here? It is a gradual transition to the security products, and it is having 2 levels of security, so classical and quantum, and it also enhances the integrity. We can see these concepts as a use case. So for example, a user want to authenticate to the payment service provider to get authenticated and access the payments. So he would start with the authentication request, and here we see the challenge response protocol. So the payment service provider send a challenge which has used the concept of hybrid, sent to the user. User would done the response, and then when all the authentication or verification would be done at the PSP, payment service provider side, when it is done, user is authorized and get the payment. So we can think about these type of use cases or proof of concepts in POC terminals or mobile payment apps or payment gateways. We can see the utilization of these concepts. However, the standards is definitely an issue, and the challenges, how company will take care of it, Isil will state about this.
Yes, first of all, I would like to underline that just Kalpana mentioned, transition to this hybrid quantum safe authentication is an overarching complex transition. As the cryptography touches many business processes, so this transition will be complex, needed major changes in the infrastructure. So therefore, the long-term project must be anticipated by the entities. And the second challenge is during this transition period, the systems must be coexist with traditional cryptography and hybrid cryptography. That's the reason also additional tests are needed to avoid any misconfiguration during this transition period. And the last one that I would like to mention about the regulatory and financial aspect, regulators are demanding with concrete milestone, and also this complex transition needs substantial costs. So entities in the long run needs to also anticipate these challenges when creating their transition strategies. And that brings us to last slide.
So we can see that from the takeaways. So we need to start gradually by considering the hybridation approach in our security products, to start development by considering a test beds, and also start evaluation considering the hybridation and crypto agility concepts, and definitely align with the standards and with the government bodies as well. And further takeaways from the Hasil.
Exactly. So again, risk assessment is a really good start for the companies to identify their critical assets. And the second takeaway that we can say is vendor exploration, considering this is a long-term journey. So as soon as possible to identify the vendor that accompany the companies in especially post-quantum safe solution also would be the next action point. And initiate the discussion for financial aspect and underline that early adoption of this solution is a security benefits for the companies. Therefore, allocate the necessary budget for this transition, and also assemble the team to with cryptography experts and security compliance operation teams to create a strategic roadmap for the companies during this transition period. That would be the visible action. So I would like to conclude that long-term cryptographic strategy is an investment for future resilience. So hope this session helps you a bit for this topic. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you.